people join the workshop we're doing here. I'm looking forward to presenting this. So we'll just give a couple minutes for people to show up. All right, and as you're joining, go ahead and let me know where you're joining me from. I'd love to find out who's on and where you guys are watching this workshop from. So I see Dennis, Della, Christian, everybody. Yeah, let me know where you're joining me from. I'd love to hear in the chat over there on the right side of the screen. Should be on the right side. But we'll give a little bit more time for people to show up. This is going to be a great workshop. I'm really looking forward to it because I've not really presented, this sort of strategy shift that we had made in our business that really changed things, that really, help us to dial in the business and really get it to where we could scale. And it was actually a lot less work in the business, so much so that I was able to focus more on the Forefront software, which used to be called FlipPilot, but Forefront now. So I'm really excited to share that with you, to hope that helps to give you, what you need to start making transitions in your business for a longer term vision that I hope that you have. And we'll talk about that as we get started. So Della, Greenville, Christian, Seattle, Derek from Columbia, South Carolina. We got Steve from Fresno, Gilda from Chicago. Yeah, more people here joining. Yeah, I can't go through everybody, but yeah, it's good to see everybody on here. Thanks so much for joining this workshop that we've put together from Forefront, and also the host of Flipping Junkie podcast. So maybe you know me from there, but we'll go ahead and just jump right in. If you can't hear me, let me know in the chat. I'm assuming, being that you guys are letting me know that you're here and where you're chiming in from, that you can hear me. But if you cannot, please put something in chat and I'll keep an eye on that. And you should see the slide screen here. So if you don't see that, let me know as well. But let's get right into this. This is, really a workshop on the strategy shift that took us from 45 leads per deal to 5 leads per deal. And, you can do the math. That's pretty incredible. The best part about this is the framework that came from this really did allow us to 10 times the number of deals we had without having to generate more leads, right? And thanks, Frank. And that's a big deal, right? Because we'll get into this, but when you have to constantly be on that hamster wheel of cranking marketing and getting more and more, you're focused on the leads, every bit of that, the marketing itself, fielding the calls, doing the deal analysis, going on appointments, all of that is a lot of extra work. So if you can dial it in better, you cut out a lot of that work, right? So it just allows you to be more mindful of the bigger vision and where you're going with your company, right? And working on the company, not as much in it. So I'm really excited to share this. So there's many ways to do things, right? So I started doing rock climbing, and I noticed that in the beginning, I thought I was really good because I could get in there and I was strong enough to kind of mostly pull myself up with my arms up a lot of these challenges. And, I was able to do it. But after a while, when I wanted to progress to harder and harder ones, I noticed that my arms would get pumped super fast. And within like 10 minutes, I was almost spent for the day. Like I couldn't do any more climb. And I took a class there at the gym, and, they showed technique, moving the body, using your legs more, positioning yourself to hang. See how she's got straight arms there. And when I started doing those things, it was amazing because I was able to climb so much more without the strength, without the need for that. And I could climb longer. So it was just an amazing thing. But that is the same sort of shift that happened in the real estate business of ours over the years. At first I was kind of like pushing through, just willpower, just not taking a breather to think maybe I could learn something that would show me, how things could be done differently, and it won't all just fall apart. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the goal is to learn this framework that allowed us to nail it so that we generated nearly 10 times more deals from the same amount of leads. And before I dig into that, though, because I really do believe that investors really need to know where they're going with everything, right? Because I know in the beginning, it was just, well, I want to have freedom, financial freedom. So, it was just like a vague goal, right? And so it was kind of hard to figure out what that really looked like. If I had financial freedom, what would my life look like? How much work did I want to do? Who was involved? Where was I living? All that kind of stuff. And I didn't have anything. It was just this vague financial freedom thing, which after a while, you start to burn out because you don't know if you're really making progress to the things that you really want. So I want to preface this whole workshop with making sure that you create a vivid vision for your life, right? Not just your business, but your life. And the best book to do that would be this Vivid Vision book. It's a very quick read, very easy read. So even if you're not a reader, either still get this book, read it, or get like the audio version of it. But it's great because it really asks the right questions of you to be able to come up with this very vivid vision of what you'd like your future to look like. And from there, we can really know what we're focused on today, this quarter, this year, next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years. And there's sort of a path there, right? That can change and probably will change over time, but at least you have something so that you can feel that momentum. You can feel the distance that you're making, right? That because if you just have this vague goal of financial freedom and you're kicking butt and you're doing a bunch of deals, but you still are not yet at financial freedom, there's a tendency to feel like I've not yet made it and I got to still hustle and, oh man, like this is not happening fast enough. Instead of looking at, man, we did 10 deals this year. That's pretty freaking awesome. Like we're making this progress towards this thing and it just feels really good and keeps you going. So if you've been in the business a while, maybe you needed to hear that message, but it's really helped me a lot lately too in getting focused on where we're taking the software company. So I want to make sure that you guys are doing that for yourselves and your families. How would your business be different if, right? And see, these are good questions to ponder as far as what could be possible in your business. What would the business be like if no leads were slipping through the cracks, right? No leads would go uncontacted, not followed up with, all that kind of stuff. What if you achieved solid deal consistency, right? That's a big one for us real estate investors. Feast or famine. If you're wearing all the hats, you're working real hard to generate the leads. You go on those appointments, you get a couple deals or a deal or so, then you work on that house or you work to wholesale it, and then you kind of drop off on the marketing, right? So there's a cycle. But what if you could have it to where you got consistency in your business? And what if you always knew exactly what the numbers were for your business so you could fix things before they became a problem? Because what is not measured cannot be managed, right? You have to measure things to be able to manage them. And that was a big thing that I had no clue about, really fumbled around with for so many years in this business. And it cost me a lot of time and effort. It really did. What if you could bring virtual assistants, acquisitions person, disposition, lead manager, transaction coordinator, all those people into your business? You don't have to, but what if you did want to start getting rid of some of the things that you don't like doing and you want to have that consistent business that allows you to set it up to be that way? Wouldn't that be awesome? What if you were in so much control of your business that you had confidence you could support that team and keep them happy and grow and give them a vision of what's possible with what you're doing? What if you could have your business run on its own even while you're on vacation? We failed to grow a team. And again, you don't have to do this, but we failed to grow a team for so many years because, the thought was, well, I want to be able to go on vacation and not worry about having to make sure that things are happening and that there's enough leads coming in for the person that's on our team and all that stuff still happening. And, what the reality was we couldn't go on vacation without taking calls and worrying about missing motivated seller leads and all that kind of stuff, right? So really the fear was unfounded and a big false belief and didn't really work out for us. But we're going to get into overcoming all of that in this workshop and the framework that helps us do that. So you could have, what if you could have the time, the energy, resources to always be there for your family and make an impact in your community if that's your thing, right? And I think, the thing for us is just reaching our full potential, both business, personal. I think that's what we're put on earth to do. And so, having the ability to have more time to really look at where your life is going and kind of, set forth that and really control what's going on with it. So does that all sound good? You guys interested in finding out how, that shift happened for us in our business and the framework that you can use to start doing those things to get to that right now? So if you're excited, let me know in the chat. That's awesome. We're going to keep going. Real quick about me, just to know where I'm coming from with all this. Father, private pilot, software developer, been investing for a long time, almost 20 years now, nearly 1,000 years done. Derek, oh, heck yeah. All right, Derek, it's awesome. And then host of the Flipping Junkie podcast. I started a Braver podcast, and then founder of Lead Propeller websites and Forefront CRM. Now, these days, honestly, I've just am focusing on Forefront CRM. I still get leads coming in through my website, which I'll do, but I'm not actively having a goal set for deals or anything like that. And I'm mostly trying to pick up long-term rentals. And so the focus now, though, is on the software that helps us do these incredible things and helps you guys do incredible things. So that's where I'm in now. Partner and I ran the flipping business, real estate investing business ourselves for years. And we were just like, yeah, we got this. We're awesome business people getting into this, excited about real estate. It's all we wanted to talk about. And it was super cool for years, but then all of a sudden it wasn't. It became sort of a nightmare. And I was just like stressed out every single day and getting to the point of feeling like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. It's just so much work. And started dropping the ball on stuff. And I remember this time where I had a rehab that wasn't selling. And, so I better go check on the house. And I stopped by the house and I was just appalled at the quality of the repairs and how I had missed the fact that even the master vanity was like kind of rotted out at the bottom. And, I just had missed all these things because I was trying to crank the numbers. I was trying to do all these deals and generate all these leads to do those deals, that the fundamentals of the business were being lost because I couldn't do all of it. It was just impossible. So to grow it, generating more leads and doing more deals was not going to happen with the way we had it set up. It just wasn't going to happen. And that's exactly how I was feeling whenever I wrote Flipping Houses Exposed, which, if you've read this before, 34 weeks that in my business where I documented all the marketing I did, all the leads that came in, every single lead I documented in that book, as far as like, this person wants this much for the house. There's reason why they're selling is this. Here's why I'm going to the appointment. Here's why I'm not. And during that 34 weeks, I had generated 495 qualified seller leads. That means these are motivated sellers that were calling me and saying, hey, I'd like to get an offer. I got a letter from you. I saw your website, whatever it was. And I documented where all those leads came from too. So you can actually see that in that book. But 495 seller leads in that 34 weeks. So you could tell what our focus was, right? It was leads because we need more leads to do more deals. Now, the thing was, we only did about 11 deals then out of those 495 leads. And if you do the math, we needed 45 leads to land a deal at that point. Right? And here I was really, and it was still to be proud of that we had done 11 deals. I mean, mostly rehabbing. So the profits were really good, but it's no wonder that I was burned out and frustrated. Something really, really had to change because there was no way I was going to sustain that, right? I was going to be finding something else to do pretty quickly if nothing changed. But luckily, that's when I met Justin Williams. And, if you know about him, he's no longer really in the space right now, but he was only spending 4 hours per week because he systematized his business. And, it was pretty amazing because I'd heard people talking about, doing this kind of thing, but he was living it right before most people were. So I flew out to see him. I was like, I'm going to spend a day with you. You mind if I come out there? And he said, yeah, when? And I told him tomorrow. And he was actually cool with it. So I got a ticket and I flew out and hung out with him for a day. The funny thing was, whenever I got there, I really doubted him because here's this guy, that's starting, like, has a podcast, doing these things, talking about only working 4 hours a week and kicking butt, doing, up to 100 deals or something per year. And I doubted him, honestly, because, once I got in his truck and, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. Let's go check out some of your rehabs. Let's see some of the properties and some of the deals that you're doing. I want to see all this stuff and see how everything's operating. And he goes, well, I don't really know where they're at. And even if we went there, the contractors aren't going to know who I am. And I was like, well, I don't know, man. This seems kind of fishy. I'm not sure if I buy all this, right? because I'm so used to having to talk to everybody and do everything and check on all the rehabs and line up the works, do the punch list, all that kind of stuff, go on all the appointments. And here was a guy not having to do any of that stuff, right? And so later during that day, though, I met his operations person, and she did everything for him, and she was the one organizing all that, but she had some people underneath her that was managing all that stuff. So it was pretty amazing. And from all that, we learned how to systematize our own business. And one of the biggest benefits that we got from doing that was getting to the point where we had the ability to work on our business. And that meant tracking our key performance indicators, tracking our numbers, what was happening in our business, right? So we know we had the pulse, and armed with the numbers, that it really represented the reality of our business at the moment. Glaring issues would show themselves in the numbers, and you have to measure your numbers, but you also have to look at them weekly, right? Look at them annually and even quarterly, and to really kind of see what trends are, see what's going on, see where you need to make changes in your business. And the glaring issue of the low lead to deal conversion rate became super obvious at that point. Because even up to that point, I hadn't even considered the fact that even after writing that book, that maybe it's not so good that it takes us 45 leads to do a deal, especially being that a lot of those were inbound leads to our website, people searching for somebody to buy their house, right? These weren't, people that were cold called or something that had no chance of being motivated. Like, these were, sellers that we should have been buying houses from. So that became obvious when we did that. So there was a mindset shift that happened that caused the strategy shift, right? Because the mindset was, this whole lead becoming a deal thing, right? What's that equation? How do we affect the numbers that change that? And the problem wasn't that we weren't generating enough leads. It was that we weren't converting enough of those leads into deals. So this whole idea that I was operating on without even really knowing it, more deals requires more leads, was completely false and wrong. There's a bigger part to this. So the equation back when I wrote that book was 495 leads, 2.2 conversion rate made us 11 deals, right? So we're sitting with a conversion rate of 2.2%. And that's what we used to average back then. We eventually got to where 1 out of every 5 leads became a deal. Now that's changing from 2.2% to 20%, right? If we had that conversion rate while generating the same amount of leads, we would have gone from 11 deals to 99 deals, right? Now, obviously there's some logistics problems there, right? If we didn't have a team at the time, what are we going to do with that many? But it's a great problem to have, right? You could wholesale, you could do a lot of other things to do those deals and profit from them. But I'm just trying to show you, what this isn't hypothetical either. This is really what happened. We got to a point where we were getting 1 out of 5, 1 out of 7 on average, fluctuating between those of our leads into deals, which really made our business super efficient. And it was cool because with that efficiency came more efficiency because we had the time to be able to tweak and really plan, and it just got better and better with less and less work, which was amazing. We didn't know it then, but the strategy changes that we made that switched our focus is something that to this day isn't even talked about. And, and I'm not talking about just this conversion rate. I'm talking about a different perspective of operating our business, especially when we're doing direct seller marketing, right? When we're marketing directly to the people wanting to sell a house. You guys want to know what that is? I'm telling you, it's like something that this is actually the first time even I've presented on this exact kind of like topic of this. So let me know in the chat, yes or yes. If not, I'll see you later. But if you are interested in it, let's just jump right in. So this is sales stats, right? And I saw this again recently, and I had sort of an epiphany about all of this. If you look at the top, awesome, Derek, man, thanks for communicating that. It's awesome. At the top of this, we have 3% active buyers, right? So this is for sales in general. Frank Gilda, awesome. All right, you guys. 3% at the top are people, in our case, not buyers, but they're sellers. They're 3% of sellers that are going to sell pretty quick, right? They are ready. They're motivated. They're going to sell. And again, remember when I was talking about 495 leads, 11 deals, 2.2% That's pretty close to 3%, isn't it? So does that show you something? Like that's where it was clicking for me. I was like, 3%. Wait a minute. That's kind of what I was going after, that low hanging fruit, that 3%. But there's also the 7% that actually intend to sell, right? In our case of buying houses from sellers, 7% intend to change and will probably sell pretty quickly, right? We don't know if that's 2 days, 1 week, a month, or whatever, but they intend to do it, right? There's 7% we were obviously missing out on. If you look at that below the line there too, you have 30% that have the need to sell, but aren't ready to act yet, right? And so that's probably even more of a longer term thing, but they have the need. That's the important thing. Motivated sellers, they talk to you and want to get an offer because they do have a need, right? That need maybe is not as pressing for them as the 7% or the 3%, but it's still there. So what does that tell us, right? I was doing 2.2%, right? Which is like the active motivated sellers ready to sell, and kind of like throwing away the rest and saying, I need more leads because I want those easy deals, right? I want the ones that are saying yes when I present the offer or the next day, right? That's what I was getting. But then there's 37% that were potential I was missing out on. And had I known these numbers, heck yeah, I would have done something then, right? I would have like started figuring out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to really build out this thing where I'm talking to them and approaching them and making it work? Because this isn't just about follow-up. So if you're thinking this whole presentation is just going to be a follow-up, it's not. There's a big piece of it, but there's the bigger mental thing here, a bigger shift on mindset of approaching our business, especially with motivated sellers. Now, this is the special thing here, right? This is the thing I'm super excited to be talking about. And it's all about this motivated seller journey. So this is the perspective change. This is the paradigm shift. Our business took off when we focused only on motivated sellers, right? We stopped wasting our time with MLS. We stopped wasting our time with other stuff. We just wanted to reach the people wanting to sell their home with less competition, all that kind of stuff, right? But the sellers are people, right? It's not just, when you're looking at KPIs, sometimes you kind of lose that whole thing. And that's where the talk has been lately, right? For everybody's like KPIs, numbers. That's great, but we're dealing with people, motivated sellers. We are dealing with motivated sellers, and they are people, and they have different situations, all of them. They're not grouped into this thing where they're all the same. And a thing with marketing is the whole idea of the journey, right? It's usually the buyer journey, but I'm presenting this as we should be focusing on motivated sellers as the motivated seller journey, going through these different phases before they actually sell their home. So the first one is awareness. The house problem isn't painful enough to even recognize that they want to do something about it, right? And then they have a consideration phase. Once they do find, hey, I've got this problem, it's getting painful, I need to do something. And then the consideration is what are the different options they have for doing something about that real estate situation? And then the decision, deciding and going with the option that they want, right? When we were focused on the 3% before, we were basically wanting those people already through the journey to the decision phase really quick, right? Meaning they had tons of motivation to make that decision. They kind of almost had to be forced to make the decision because they didn't have many options, right? Time-wise, if they're losing the house or, whatever the situation was, that's what we were getting at. Now, the 7% plus the 30%, and that's I think where we're dealing with people mostly still in that consideration phase. And I really see that the problem is that most real estate investors are operating as if everybody's at the decision phase. Go with us, go with us, go with us, right? We'll make you this offer, we can close quickly, kind of thinking consideration. But with this whole trust economy, people are going to sell to who they like and trust. And if you're just trying to make it a quick thing, like they're in some forced motivated decision part of it, that's where you're not going to get the 70% and 30%. So that's what we're talking about today. We got to focus on strategy, meeting the seller where they're at, right? So if we want that bigger chunk of the pie, right, we want to meet them where they're in the consideration phase, not where we need them to be at the decision phase. we have to have our business operating in a way that shows them we know where you're at, and we're not going to try to high pressure sell you on it, right? Like going to a dealership and having that car salesman, you don't want to talk to him because you feel like he's going to try to push you into a car right away, right? It's the same sort of thing. So these will be adjustments that you can make in your own business right now, what we're going to cover the bulk of this presentation here. And also, I want to let you know while we're doing this, though, we built, obviously, Forefront CRM system that focuses on this, taking all the lessons that we've learned working with hundreds of real estate investing teams over the years with CRM system, and also just knowing a bunch of investors, right, that have grown their businesses. And after I talk about each step of the framework, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how Forefront can help you save time and effort with that step, how it takes it to the next level so that you can see even the reality of, what that looks like in real life, right? When I talk about a step of the framework, okay, that's great, but how do I do it? Like, how am I going to implement that in my business? And I want to show you how Forefront helps you do that so that you can see that whether you're using a different one or not, that's your choice. Obviously, we'd love you to check out Forefront, but this is about helping you guys make that transition, though, in your business to see that. And that's what we're all about here today. So sound good? I know we've got some customers in here. Derek's definitely a customer, and I'm sure there's others in here that are watching this already. So I'm super pumped about them being here, being able to see this training. All right, awesome. Cool. Yeah, looking forward to sharing it. So you guys ready to see the framework? A super excited kid here, like super curious, right? So here's the OCD framework, and this is all about organization, connection, determination, which is the OCD. And it's a pyramid because it's all building on itself. Yeah, there's Mike too. Cool. And so at the base, you got organization, then you got connection, then you got determination. You can't really build connection as well without the organization. And you can't do the determination part of it if you don't have the organization connection built in as well. And so let's see what that means exactly, right? For the organizational piece, which obviously is the most important foundational, it's this idea of no lead left behind, right? Because we're working hard, it's costly to get leads. So we have to make sure that every single one of those leads is going to be approached from that perspective of where they're at in their journey so that we can maximize how many of those we turn into deals over time. So you need to know about every single new lead that you have and then repeatable systems in place to make sure that they're all treated the same, based on your processes, right? Same in that respect. So this is the front line of your operation. There's a lot of different things here, but really the bulk of this boils down to live answering as many calls as possible, right? And then returning missed calls and web leads as fast as possible. If you've got leads, if you're doing marketing, you're paying for that and you have leads coming in and somebody's not live answering the phone, picking it up when it's ringing, you're dropping stuff immediately right there, right? It's just not, if you answer that phone, I'm telling you, that's like the highest transition or change in conversion rate you're going to see is doing that. And then making sure when a call is missed that you're returning that call as soon as possible. Or if you get a web lead or if you get a response from your cold texting campaigns or whatever, that you're literally trying to reduce the length of time it takes to get those and making the call back outbound within under 2 minutes. I'm serious. This is like a huge, huge deal. Think about it yourself. If you're out reaching out to people, calling people or doing something, the last thing you want to do is sit there and call a bunch of numbers, leave a bunch of messages and wait for people to call you back. It's frustrating. You're trying to accomplish something. And this is where the 3% that's going to really help you, but it's also going to help you on the 7% and the other 30% because that's going to build a huge amount of trust, right? And professionalism, because I'm telling you, your competition, they're not answering their phones. The majority of them are not. And I just put a house under contract literally yesterday, and I offered $15,000 less than the person that came after me. And, I followed up and talked with the seller on the phone, and he said, we really want to sell to you though. He says, you've been very professional, and they wanted to sell to me. And he said, could you get closer? And I went up within 5,000. I was still 5,000 below the other guy, and they still accepted my offer and went with me. I probably could have got it without budging on price at all, but it was a great deal anyway. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that he told me on the first phone call that he appreciated that I answered my phone, right? That I was there to take that call. So one way that you've got to be able to start doing this to make this transition is to stop using your cell phone number on your marketing. If you guys are doing that, I urge you to make the switch to start running the business a little bit differently, because eventually it's not going to be you answering the phone. And I'm telling you, that's going to be one of the best high leverage things that you can do is get a lead intake specialist. Even somebody that's not like a full-time employee, but somebody like a family friend that's at home all the time, maybe that has the ability to answer those calls live and spend as much time as they can on the phone with that seller. It goes a long, long way. Not a, let me get the info and get off the call. You know, you need to have somebody, if it's not you, taking the call and not being in a rush, right? Being willing to spend the time building that connection, which is the next step. You can use CallRail. Now, CallRail is a good service to set up, you know, getting different phone numbers for your marketing so you can track your marketing, and then, you know, set up these call flows. So when somebody contacts you through that number, it's going to try to call you. And if you're not available, it can try to ring somebody else, right? That way you've got different options there. If you're not able to get the call, somebody else is able to answer the call live. And what we used to do was set up, we got a call service. So we had 2 people, I think, in the answering sequence. If they couldn't get it, then it would go to our live answering service, right? Because it's better than nothing. It's still not as good as one of us answering it, but it's still somebody's answering the call. And so that's a cool way to do that. Web leads and responses to any campaigns you're doing need to be documented as well, because you need to know immediately that you have them so that you can make that call back, right, within 2 minutes. How is that going to be possible if you don't have some central place where those are coming in, right? If you've got campaigns that, you know, are sending you leads through your email, and other ones where, you know, it's in your prospecting platform, at the end of the day, you're finding out about the people that responded, you're losing out there, because if contact was made or somebody reached out, the best thing to do is find out about it and immediately get in touch with them. So having that central location like a spreadsheet or CRM to know about every single lead. And it is possible to send certain things into a spreadsheet through like Zapier. If you've ever heard of Zapier, set up a Zap that sends stuff into a spreadsheet. I'm not getting into all the technical stuff, but if you just don't have a budget for your CRM, that is possible to do that. And again, because it's not always going to be you working on these things. So setting up these processes now to make it to where you're more efficient and you're capturing the 7% and the 30% more of them, you know, then when you bring on a team, it's already built out, right? You've already built your machine to really operate in the way that you need it to operate. And you're not going to rely on someone you're hiring to try to figure it all out. And the next thing here is don't let sellers ghost you, right? This is something that I was really bad at for so long. And, you know, it just is a horrible thing to do. But a lot of times, especially with like things like web leads and cold outreach, somebody will respond, but then when you try to get back in touch with them, you can't get a hold of them, right? They're just like, forget it. They changed their mind. They got scared, usually is the bigger thing, or, you know, and, you know, almost all real estate investors are doing this, right? So if you refuse to let sellers ghost you, guess where that puts you, right? Even if it's 3 weeks of attempts to get back in touch with somebody that reached out to you, how many of your competitors, if they even tried to contact your competitors, do you think stuck around trying to contact them for 3 weeks, right? By the time you get them on the phone, you don't have any competition. And isn't that a great place to be? I mean, that's just, you know, so it's like one of those things where you get that mindset shift of, I actually like the fact that we're sometimes getting ghosted, because those sellers are most likely ghosting other people too, right? If they haven't already talked to somebody that answered their phone first or whatever. So now this is where we're going to go ahead and kind of go from, you know, that talk of being able to answer your phone right away, right? A live answer person, and then returning calls right away. And I'm going to show you in real world terms, like how to do that with the system, and in fact, using Forefront, because that's our system. So I'm going to show you that this is kind of, even like I said, even if you're not using Forefront, you want to do this with whatever you're using, right? And you know, if you got a website, Carrot, Lead Propeller, if you're using CallRail, you can even integrate CallRail into Forefront. And so that any new call comes in or a new text message comes in from a number that it's not in your Forefront account, it's going to create a new lead, right? So you know immediately as soon as that call, even if you have someone else on your team supposed to be answering those, or if you have an answering service, you're going to know about the lead because it'll pop up in the Forefront. Even as soon as that call is attempted to your company, you're going to have the new lead there. Website leads from Carrot Lead Propeller or any other website or web form can be automatically put into Forefront as well, so that you have these new leads in there. And I'm going to show you this really cool thing that we have inside of Forefront called the inbox that captures all these so that you know the new ones that haven't been dealt with yet, right? And the idea is to always have inbox 0. So we built that into Forefront for new leads. You also have responses from people with context, right? So if you're doing a lot of motivated seller marketing, right, and you're getting a lot of leads, it can be very tricky if you're following up with them and you get a text from somebody, right? Especially if you're using your cell phone, because you're not saving all these sellers' names in your cell phone, right? And so, like you'll get that message, you're like, man, I don't know who this is from. So you got to do all kinds of stuff to figure out like what lead was this, what's going on. And it's kind of that embarrassing thing, right? And then the professionalism goes away, the connection with that seller kind of drops out. But in Forefront, those responses, if somebody responds to you, even if it's like a month or a week or whatever later, all the context is shown to you right there. And we'll show you inside the system what that exactly looks like. There was a question about whether you need Zapier to integrate directly. For a lot of things, you do need Zapier for that. But there are some tools like, Batch. Batch Leads doesn't require Zapier to bring things in. Lead Propeller websites, you don't need Zapier to have the leads come into Forefront. If you have a Carrot site, you will need Zapier and things like that. But it's a great tool to have. It's not very expensive. And you can hook up a lot of stuff. I'm going to also show you later in this presentation the power of using Zapier to do things from Forefront into other systems that allows you to tap into all kinds of things. So I'll get into that. You know how I talked about not letting sellers ghost you? Well, we've got that built into Forefront so that you can monitor that and you know all the ones over time that you're trying to make contact with in one place. And so no other system does this because they're not focused on, coming from the perspective of the seller experience, coming from the perspective of the motivated seller journey, right? So they've got situations, they're still in that consideration phase. And so they need a little bit more prodding sometimes. So making contact with them over time to get back in touch with them is hugely important. We also have a built-in phone system. So you don't have to have CallRail with Forefront. You can use it with Forefront, but we have our own phone systems built in that are included. So you won't pay extra for them. And then you can make calls out of the browser and stuff like that, which makes it very fast and convenient. Especially if you have VAs or something in other countries, being able to allow them to call from the browser is huge. And it's just very powerful. So you can track your marketing with those because you can have the phone number attached to a campaign. So if you get a new call, which is a new lead, it's going to automatically say that lead is from this marketing campaign because they called that number, right? So that's very cool because KPIs are awesome, but getting those numbers and organizing those numbers, if you don't have a system that kind of gives you those numbers, is painful as anything, and you will not do it for very long if you don't have a system that does it for you. But the next thing here is connection. But I'm going to show you really quick. Let me switch screens over here to get into Forefront for you, so I can show you some of what we've got in here. Let's see. All right, so you ought to see the inbox here. I'm pretty sure it's showing for y'all. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I've got my website, one of my websites hooked up to Forefront, and what's going to happen, right? So here's a website here, and I'm just going to put Jackie Johnson or something. This is all just fake stuff. I'm trying to make something that's definitely not somebody's email address. Probably somebody's phone number, but and then let me get an address here. I'm going to pull up one from Zillow really fast. $115 Pike Road sounds good. To get my cash offer. And now that I've submitted that, if I come back over to Forefront, you're going to notice now that 115 Pike is now in my inbox immediately. I already know it's here. And I can do something about it, right? So if I click on this one, this just came in. I don't have any details on it though, other than, you know, the address and the seller down here, Jackie Johnson, address, all that kind of stuff. The cool thing is, you know, with Lead Propeller, there's the two-step opt-in form, right? So you have more info, and Carrot does the same thing. I don't know what the zip code was on that one, 209. And then let's just put in info. I'll make this real quick. Needs everything repair-wise. Asking price is $235,000. Owned for 3 years. I'm going to say that I owe $120,000. Not behind. Reason why I'm selling is the goofballs next door. In a couple weeks, I heard about you from Google. Put the caption here. And get that cash offer. All right, so now I've got this form submitted with all this info. And check it out. I click back over to Forefront. And look at that. All that stuff is already in here. It updated. Now, this is a big deal if you've ever hooked up websites to CRM systems like Podio and stuff, that you tend to end up with a problem of, you know, 2 leads being created for the same property there. But, you know, we've got it set up to where you can have that thing come in and update itself. It's the same record, updated with the info, even though there's 2 form submissions. And now I got all that info that came in. And I know that, hey, I need to call these people back. I'm going to go ahead and try to call them. And if I do that, it's going to say, okay, calling this person. I'm using my website phone number, which is how they contacted me through the website. So I'm going to use my website phone number to call them back. I'm going to go ahead and use voice over IP. So use it from the browser. And I want to record that call. So these are my default settings, and I'm going to click Start Call. And so I'm calling this person now. Hello? All right, well, they didn't pick up. And I don't know who that is because this is a fake number I put in there. So, excuse me. And so you can see now I made this attempt, right? And I think sometimes it takes a little while for the phone call stuff to come back, but I'll show you that in a minute. But let's assume, you know, that lead came in. I quickly tried to make contact with them, right? Because we know how important that is. I did not get a hold of them, but I have it defaulted to being a status of contact not made, and the first contact is still needed. And I'm going to go ahead and put that I'm going to try them again in an hour. So I'm going to click 1 hour. I'm going to click save. And then I'm going to maybe make a note, try to call, answer. I'm going to save that note. Now, since I did something, right? I did something with this lead. I can click done, right? Because if a new one comes in, I don't want to have a clogged up inbox full of stuff of all these other leads, because I want to know the ones I need to try to contact right away. But since it was in the status of contact not made, over here in my pipeline, contact not made, I can see these are all late. I'm late on all these. But here's Pike down here at the bottom. It's for today because I said 1 hour from now. And it's not red because it's still an hour away. But it will become red like the rest of these if I'm late to do it. And so I got all the info here. You see what's cool about this too? Is I hope you guys can see it on the screen here. Hopefully the video is in HD enough for you to see it. But it shows that 4 minutes ago is when this lead came in, and that I called a minute ago, and that I've had 1 call attempt. Right? If I look at some of these older ones up here, This guy, 2 months ago, we've been trying to get in touch with this ghosted person. The last time we tried to do something to reach them was an email 13 days ago. We tried 4 calls, 27 texts, and 2 emails, right? But we're not giving up, right? You're probably going to have some sort of process to say, at a certain point, you're probably going to want to just like stop doing stuff. And if you're sending text, you know, they can reply with opt out or something, and, you know, all that kind of stuff can be taken care of. But this is really cool because this allows you to go through and make contact and see how many times you've made contact with them. And we built this in a way where you can easily go in and see the lead info, right? By clicking there on the address and seeing all the stuff about the property, as well as the contact. And that even shows you like all the texting and calls that have been made. If I look at well, it's in the history here. All that information is here, right? So it's all really quick. Now, a cool thing that I want to show is we can also turn on this thing called one-click calling, right? So if I do this, I'm going to enable that. And so you know how when I did the call before, it popped up the box and I had to look at the settings and then hit call. So it was an extra step. Well, with one-click calling turned on, you skip that. I can click call and boom, it just starts. It knows my settings. It's going to call. And then if I make a contact or not, I can, you know, leave a note real quick. I can set the next time that I want to try it and go on to the next one. Call that one, do that. This just makes it so efficient. It makes you want to do it, right? Because when your system isn't set up for this, it's painful if you have just a big task list of all these different tasks to want to sit down and try to make contact with a bunch of people. Whereas we made it to where it's very easy to do with that. So how cool is that, everybody? I mean, like, you know, this is a way to make sure that you're getting in touch with those people that are ghosting you, if that's happening quite a bit. And it's very cool. The other thing that we have, I showed you how the website's hooked up, and it'll put that lead in there. This lead was already in here from this morning at 9:34. We got a call. You can see the call right here. This call from this person with an unknown name, because it was a call, and I could listen to the voicemail and see what's going on with it. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I got to play this again. This is pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah, I know that you guys buy them houses and stuff. And I got one of these houses over here, dang, man. I just need to sell this thing. So give me a call, and we'll see if we can't make a deal. All right? Sound good? All right, give me a call back. Thanks.
I don't know if you guys heard that, but yeah, it was a pretty cool call. So this would be somebody I'd try to call back right away and get in touch with and find out, because they're pretty motivated, right? And I've got it selected as hot over here because it actually came from my Google Ads phone number. So I have the system defaulting those leads to hot, because if someone's reaching you through Google Ads, usually it is a pretty hot lead. And based on that call recording, it sounds like it, right? So that's pretty cool. So the leads can be created by those phone calls. We also have phone scripts. And this is basically like web forms if you're used to that. But if I go into my call scripts, I can look at this one. You can configure these however you want. And we give you a random URL. And you can specify each question that should be asked, how to ask it, and then the fields for data. So if you have somebody else answering the phone, you can give them this URL, and they could add leads to your account by going down the script. And you customize this, build it however you want, put whatever fields you want in it, and then you get your new leads that way. And the cool thing about that is how you handle that first call or any call is really important. So having a thing like this set up, like, you know, where we can tell whoever's on the call to say all this stuff about our company, right? Because again, this is the shift I'm hoping that you make. The view of the fact that the seller is on their own journey. They're probably in the consideration phase, most likely, based on the fact that out of 40%, 37% of them are, right? And so during this conversation, treating them like they are, right? They're still considering what options they have. And you want to make it very clear that this option is going to be should be the one that is strongest for them when they finally move into the decision phase, right? So that's the whole goal. All right, so cool. How cool is that, everybody? I mean, you see how the power of organizing these things to have these new leads coming in and then being able to make those calls keep from being ghosted and all that kind of stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But let's go ahead and switch back to our slides and continue with the next part of the framework, which is the connection piece, which is super important. Okay, so now we got connection. This is all about relationship. And like I said before, this is a trust economy we're in these days. There's so much noise. Everybody is being bombarded everywhere. So people tend to buy from, or in our case, sellers sell to those that they like and trust, just like what I was talking about with getting that house under contract just yesterday, because they did like and trust me more than the competition. So your first communication with your company needs to be as trust building as possible. Somebody's always available to answer those calls. Someone whose sole responsibility is talking and listening to the seller, not just trying to get the details and get off the phone, excuse me. And if you've got somebody answering the phone, or if it's you, whoever it is, really should go through John Martinez's REI Sales Academy. Their training, actually, just even check out his YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel, REI Sales Academy, and a lot of the stuff is on there. I mean, it's just amazing. You know, talking through the different situations, and it's really geared towards that perspective of knowing where the seller is and meeting them where they are on their journey of selling their house. So that's a super powerful thing to go ahead and do. You need to have the whole picture for every lead, right? This gets back into when I was talking about getting a response from somebody that maybe you hadn't talked to in like 2 months. If you have the full information about what you guys had always talked about, and what their concerns are, what their worries are, what their objections might be, that's going to go a long way. Because if it's like meeting somebody and then you see them again in 2 months, and that person remembers your name is huge, right? But then also says something about the conversation that you guys had. How does that make you feel? Now, it feels pretty darn good, and you can help sellers to feel like you and your team actually remember them as well, because you have the information there. And this is huge, because again, this is the part where it's, really making them feel heard and valued, and really focusing on where they're at in consideration and swaying them. So Frank, I'll get into that in a minute, where you can get the Zillow data from the system. I appreciate you asking over there in the chat. And once I get into the part on there within Forefront, I'll show you that. Notes, calls, text, emails, offers, all the things that go along with a lead, right? With the seller, an interaction with the seller that you have. You have all the notes, you have the calls that went back and forth, the texts that went back and forth, the emails and the offers. And building credibility with materials that you have and communications that show how it works, testimonials, and how you're different. Right. And I want you to take a picture of this slide if you can. Things start to change in your business with sellers when you go the extra step in giving them things that your competitors are not. So we made it like a trifold brochure. And you got to think about when a seller contacts you, many of them have never sold a home before. So, they're really kind of scared because they don't even know the process. So they feel like they could be easily taken advantage of, right? And so a big thing in overcoming that and building a bunch of trust and credibility is showing them your process, right? How does it work? What happens, right? If I make you an offer, and as a seller's perspective, if I accept that offer, what is going to happen? I kind of want to know that before I accept it, because I don't want to say yes to something when I'm kind of confused about what's going to happen afterwards. So this is huge. You can do this in a printed material that you give them, but you can also put this into emails and text and stuff, mostly emails, to be able to get this to them, right? And testimonials, like showing that other people that you've worked with were super happy. People want to see that. And then how you're different, right? And I hope that you have something that speaks to how you're different. We used to use a thing about internally. We wouldn't actually say this to sellers, but the way we did speak to them showed the difference in this thing. But internally, we would say we're not used car salespeople, and that was our big differentiator. And so that just goes along with what we're talking about today. Is the shift that we made. treating people differently as people in their own situation along their own journey, and not trying to force a signed contract. So now we'll jump into how that looks inside of a tool like Forefront, which I always love doing. So let's click back over to that, and let's see. This is the right one here, and what we're going to do is look at, let me see, I'm going to find one of these leads here and just go into it. You know, basically having all the info in one place, right? For every single lead within Forefront, you have the activity log down here, right? It's kind of color coded for the different things. Calls are purple, text are blue, notes are this orangish red color. Then you have like pink for activity. And so you can see everything in the timeline of all the stuff that happened, including messages that came and went, right? So it's really cool to get a bird's eye view of all that. If I only want to see notes, I can just get like deselect these and see only the notes, right? And if I only want to see the activity, get rid of the rest, see the activity. If I only want to see the text, if I want to see the calls, get rid of the notes, and I see all the calls and text. Actually, I have text selected. So no calls. All that kind of stuff is in here though, but it's all available to you and you're able to see all that, right? Now, if I just click in here to the text for this person, which is the seller, I can see the history of it there in a way that makes sense to me as far as who said what and when, right? This last message was from the seller and we haven't responded yet, which is a big problem. And we're going to get to that, right? See how it says not addressed? That's a problem because they sent that back on 3/16. Today is 4/12. So we've got an issue there with that, if that's the case during this. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And yeah, so building the credibility, right? What are different things that we can do? It's great to have all the info, right? This is where if you got a call response, let's just go ahead and talk about that. So if you notice, I'm in the inbox here in Forefront. We have our new leads that came in, and then we have responses that came in. Responses are any communication that came from somebody that's in your system already, right? So a response. So like I said, this one came in a month ago, right? And you know, based on the conversation, I had made an offer, said they couldn't go that low. I went up a little bit, and then didn't hear from them. And then about a month and a half later, I lost my job. He's still interested in buying my house. You would think that, there was a call attempt here, of course, but it was only 1 second. So whoever made that call didn't really attempt too much. And it's still in the response inbox here. So obviously, if you're monitoring this, if you have Forefront, you'd see this response, you'd be able to do this. You'd be able to take care of this right now and send them another text or call them and deal with it and buy the house, right? Because obviously they lost their job. They're now more motivated. They're moving into the decision phase, right? So we're going to capture them. But it's cool to have this response inbox because someone should have taken care of this right away, clicked done, and then moved on, right? And when you're in here doing stuff, if you do make contact, you can change the status to be an active one if it's like an active deal, analysis needed. You can configure all of these. And you can move it into there. And we'll talk about the pipeline here in a little bit. But that's pretty cool, right? So that's how you get the whole picture. If I see that I got this text, I can quickly see the last note that was left right here and the details about the house. But I could also click this open and look at all those notes and kind of get a real good idea what was going on with our whole interaction with this seller, which is huge. And I'm telling you, no other system puts it in a way that makes people feel so heard and valued, right? When you have all that information, you can speak to them about, hey, sorry you lost your job. Have you talked to your uncle? You had said that you were going to sell to your uncle, or stuff like that. Like you just remember all of it. Okay, so let's talk about also building that trust and credibility in other ways besides how we communicate and know the information about the house. We can set automations based on where the lead is. And so I have some set up here. I have one for when an appointment is set. So if I move it into my pipeline at appointment set, I've got an automation here to send an email It's coming from my email address. It's going to say it's from Danny at Danny Buys Houses. The subject line is "We appreciate you." Now, mind you, this is an automation, right? If I say this property has an appointment now and I put it into the appointment set status, this is going to go off and be emailed to that seller. And they're going to get this automatically, so I don't have to remember or worry about it. It says, "We appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out to us to get an offer on your house. We really appreciate you trusting us with this important decision," thereby acknowledging the fact that it is a really big decision to them, right? "We just wanted to let you know what to expect moving forward. We will arrive at the appointment, take a quick look at the house. While we're there, we'll work up numbers, present you with an offer. No cost or obligation." I'm showing them what's going to happen, right? That's you. Like, this is huge. This really is big stuff for sellers if you've not done this for very long. Here's what other sellers in San Antonio had to say about our company. Here's a testimonial. Here's a link to all of our other testimonials that they can click on and go check out, thereby building even more credibility, right? And this is going to go out automatically. How cool is that, right? So you can set that up in your account. Automations at every status can happen. Appointment notifications. So that appointment was set. So if I go to my appointment settings, I have it to where 2 hours before the appointment, they're going to get a text. And it's going to say this is, and then my company name, right? Short codes will be populated by whatever your company name is. And there's a bunch more you can type in here. You can just open bracket and see all the different like you could put the property address in there if you wanted to. So it doesn't seem automated, right? Because it's actually putting stuff about that lead into it. "We had an appointment set for 2 hours from now. Looking forward to meeting and seeing you. Feel free to check out our reviews," right? So here again, even in the text, I'm sending them a link to our reviews, thereby building even more credibility, plus being professional and saying, "Hey, we had an appointment, just a reminder." This is all automated. I don't have to remember to do this. It just happens, right? 2 hours before every appointment. And then so there's a bunch of different things you can control with that, but I'm going to leave it at that just to not overwhelm and confuse anybody. But appointment reminders, building that trust, building that credibility, super, super powerful. And not only that, like if you've been on enough appointments where people didn't show up, I'm telling you, man, these like reminders to get people to show up are huge. Because even if they forgot and that was 2 hours before, they'll respond and say, "Hey, I totally forgot." And that's going to save you hours and your acquisitions people hours of time and wasted appointments where people don't show up. Check this one out too. This one, and you guys that are customers, I'm hoping that you guys implement this stuff into your account. I have one set up for the closed status. So this is after we bought the house, we closed on it, or we wholesaled and we closed, right? I've got an automation here for this. If I click to manage, you can see I got a text that goes out. So as soon as I move it into that closed status from my Forefront phone number for my website, I send a text that says, "Can't believe it's already done. Thank you for trusting us with the sale of your house. If you are pleased with how everything went, would you mind leaving us a review here?" And then a shortened link to my like Google review or Facebook page review place. It would really help us. Thank you. Right? This is the moment after closing where they're most likely to give you the thing because they just got done. You did exactly what you said. And they're thinking, "Man, that was awesome. It went really easy. I was scared. It's over with. I feel so good." And then you get a request for this, which you should be making at closing as well if you're not. But to have this automated as well to be able to get more of those reviews. Because again, people are looking for you online and, research your company because it's all about trust. People want to know who they're working with is the right choice in this consideration phase. So if you have more reviews, who's going to trust like the person that's got no reviews or the person that's got 78 reviews, right, on Google Maps, right? It's a huge deal these days. So you can automate the request of those to get more reviews. How cool is that? Yeah, I thought so, right? All right, everybody. So yeah, that's a connection within Forefront. I told Frank that I would show him that thing here. And to do that, I'm going to show you the active pipeline, right? So we talked about the inbox where your new leads, responses came in. We talked about the contact not made stage where the leads that came in that haven't been contacted yet because, or you haven't made that contact, right? That first connection. So those are there. But if you do make contact and you are analyzing the deals and you're setting appointments and you're negotiating, you got this cool pipeline view that shows you right here what's where. What's going on with the leads that you're working, right? These are the most important ones. These are the ones where you got appointments. You're going to be making offers. It's a huge deal. You can see everything at a glance. We've got color coding. All of these are behind. They should have been done. They're all red because they came in. This was due 4/5. So it's a demo account. So you can understand. But if I change the due date for this thing to be tomorrow, and these are all automated as well. The status will actually have the time that you can set for how long it should be in there. And if it goes over that, it turns red, right? So at a glance, they should all be green, right? And then we also have this, right? So you don't have to scroll over all the time. So we've got 4 red leads. We got 1 green. This is the 1 green one. I need to take care of the 4 red ones. They're not done. So I can click into it. Okay, I got to run the analysis. These are the tasks I got, and I need to do that. But while I'm in here, I'm going to show, we used to pull the Zillow data in, Frank, from their API, but they stopped access to the API. So we're currently working for a data provider to be able to automatically pull the data in. But we do have this view on Zillow link, and you just click that and it opens right up to that property. And this is just a fake address, so it's not pulling the right one, I don't think. But we do automatically generate that lead so you can view it on Zillow and get that data quickly as possible. So it's the best that we could do with the short notice on that. But we're looking for a data provider and eventually hope to pull in property data and stuff for those leads. Cool. So that's the active pipeline and the Zillow data stuff. I'm tempted just to keep going and showing you guys all this stuff on Forefront, but I want to keep to the training for the framework and everything. So let's jump right back over to that. Let's see here. Okay, so now we went through organization connection. Now we're at, so we talked about tracking communication, building credibility, and knowing when somebody responds. Here's something from Dan Franks. He's a customer of ours. With several members on our team, we love having the ability to see all of each other's communications in one place. I'm able to listen to my assistant's call, see past messages, and send a new text, all without ever leaving the lead. And it's just changed his efficiency to be able to do more deals, but also to quality control what's going on with the people making calls and receiving calls for him, right? Which is big. You should spot check those from time to time or have somebody that does. Now, the next section of this, right? We've done the organization connection. Now we're going to determination. So this one we call top of mind every time, because with that 37% of sellers being more in the consideration phase, you want to be top of mind, and hence the name Forefront. You want to be at the forefront of the seller's mind when they're ready to move into that decision phase, right? And how do you do that, right? How do you make sure that when time comes, when they're like, hey, something else happened in my life, or, you know, I gave it a lot more thought. Now it may be 4, 5, 6 months later, you know, and I want to sell. Who am I going to remember? The person that reached out to me every month, you know, before that, every 2 weeks, and every week before that. That person that I remember because they kept contacting me, right? Who am I going to remember? That person or the person that I talked to, made an offer, and never called me again, never contacted me again, right? It's going to be the one that stayed with it, right? Stayed caring about your situation, trying to help you through that with that option, and not being a forceful used car salesperson trying to convince them to sell right away. We have to ensure that follow-up is always happening. This is non-negotiable, right? You got to have this thing happening all the time, this follow-up. Most investors don't follow up the way they should because they've made false assumptions. So if you're on the call right now, you got leads coming in, you're not religiously following up with them. And you may have even thought something whenever I said, you know, the person that was contacting them every month and every week and maybe every day before that, you may have thought something like, well, man, I'm going to piss people off, right? You know, is that good? I mean, no, I'm not going to build trust if I do that, right? But I think that the biggest false belief is that following up is salesy and pushy and we'll just piss off sellers, right? Of course, you're going to piss off somebody, but that's going to happen no matter what you do. It's not just follow-up. So if you have 100 people that you're trying to help by buying their house, paying cash, closing quickly, and one of those people gets pissed off, the other ones aren't going to be vocal that they're okay with it. They like that you keep checking in on them, but you're going to focus on that one that was pissed off and assume the rest are feeling the same way when that's not reality. It's not the truth. And, just recently, my girlfriend was talking about wanting some work done on her house, had a contractor come out, and she's waiting on, talking with him. He's not communicating with her, right? So she's annoyed. She's like, I have to call him. Like, I have to check back with him because I want to, find out, about when he's going to be able to and if he can do it and all that kind of stuff. Now, consider if she had gotten the quote from 2 different contractors and the other one was very communicative, would call, would send a couple texts, maybe talk about reviews. I think she would have already signed up and gone with the first one. And she's already talked to me about being so annoyed at this other guy. Even though she liked him from the meeting, he didn't ever follow up. And that to her was a big deal. So I urge you to have that mindset shift about that. Get rid of this false belief that checking in with people over time is being pushy or salesy, right? If you say things in a way that's like, come on, sell to me, I'm the best thing there is. Like, yeah, that's not going to come across very well. But if you're saying things like, hey, just wanted to check back with you, hope everything's well. We're still interested in that property if you are considering selling it now, right? Simple and sweet, and very easy. And we're going to talk about some of those messages in a little bit, but sellers actually want you to follow up, tattoo that somewhere. Here we got Principal Skinner, follow up often. Oh, to stay top of mind, right? That's what we're trying to do. We want to be at the forefront. All right, this is a message I pulled off from that we saw. That was, Brian says, I spotted this property driving for dollars. It didn't really have a good way of reaching out. I didn't really have a good way of reaching out and following up. A lot of the tools that exist now weren't around 4 years ago. I was making notes on my iPhone, but I'd been using CRM since 2001, so I knew better. Anyway, I looked back to my driving for dollars list from just that quarter in 2015, and there were 40 plus properties that sold to investors on that list. How many tens of thousands of dollars did being disorganized and not following up cost me? Right? If you think about that, 40 plus properties that sold to investors, sold to the competition, right? I mean, it's just crazy. If you're newer and you get to a point where you're managing even say 100 leads or so, it's my opinion that you absolutely need some way to stay organized. Not sticky notes, not phone notes. Don't save your way out of business, meaning save money. Spend the money that'll help you make your hard work pay off. Don't be like me. I thought that was really powerful. Derek says, yikes. Yeah, man, that's kind of like what I was thinking too when the 2.2%, 11 deals out of 495 leads, how much money was left on the table of all those deals that probably other investors got that I passed on because I didn't follow up, right? Automated drip sequences. So obviously using those, it makes it to where you can be consistent and you can have automation happen and not make it seem automated. That's the key. Automation that seems automated does worse than not having any. And I think that's where a lot of people just default to, right? But follow-up messages sent by text or email that are conversational and short, just to remind them you're still there, work way better. So you can include personalization in your text messages and emails rather than generic messages, meaning seller's first name, like Rosie. Good morning, Rosie. Just checking back with you. Right. If I get a text that says, good morning, Danny, I'm not going to assume it was some robot sending it to me. Right. If it goes on and says some other stuff, like a whole bunch of stuff and just weird, I'll probably know that. But if it's just a short message, that includes things like good morning, good afternoon, I'm really not going to immediately think that is automated. And I'm going to show you how this whole determination in keeping with it is really possible with Forefront and in automating your follow-up so that you can do all kinds of things and let Forefront follow up for you near indefinitely. I'm going to show you how to make it to where it just operates for like 3 years plus if you want, and just keeps going, right? Like a machine, because it is a machine. When a seller responds, the follow-up sequence will automatically be paused, right? Sometimes if you've got automation happening and people are responding to it, you don't want to keep sending them these messages of, I haven't heard from you. It's like, no, actually you did. I just called you. So Forefront is smart enough to know they responded, pause the sequence, right? You can go back and restart it, but we want you to be professional. We want this to not feel automated because, like we said, it doesn't work right if it's not seeming legitimately sent from you, because you're trying to build that trust. So let's go ahead and switch over. All right, we were going a little bit long, so glad you guys are bearing with me on this, and hopefully enjoying. If you guys are getting something out of this, let me know over in the chat. Say, yeah, this is awesome, or whatever you would like to say. I want to know you guys are still watching and paying attention, because this is really game changing. All right, over in the follow-up. So in the follow-up settings, I've got these sequences set up, right? Let's go over to the offer made hot sequence. All right, so I just named it that, to be sent after an offer has been made, motivation is hot. So this one's set up to be over 30 days. I got 8 steps. So they're going to be a lot more frequent, right? Because the person is motivated, right? So I don't want to wait 2 weeks before sending them. They're going to have sold to another investor. So if I look at this, you're going to be able to see like these messages, and then the day that they go out and the time that they go out. And I got 3 texts, and then I got an email, then I got a text, an email, text. And you notice all these times are different. They're all kind of random. That goes a long way in making it not seem automated, right? If I keep getting texts at 8 o'clock on the dot, 9 o'clock on the dot, right, that kind of tells me something too. That's just kind of fishy. So I like to do these things. And being that I know what time this is going to go out, and mind you, Forefront knows the time zone, right? Because it's set for people, and you can change it if you need to, if someone's in Hawaii or something. It's going to send this out on their time zone, right? Whoever it's sending it to. So you don't have to worry about time zone differences, getting somebody text in the middle of the night problems, stuff like that. System takes care of that. How cool is that? I mean, it's just it's a game changer. So let's look at this, right? You can put short codes, right? Personalization. This is Danny, or whoever's sending it, from Danny Buys Houses, whatever company name I've set in my account. Please let me know if you have any questions. Also, thanks for the opportunity to work with you, right? Short, sweet, has personalization, has time of day, random time. This is what you want to do. Like, set up these things like this. Just checking back, see if you had a chance to review the offer. Is there anything you would like to go over? Open-ended questions, not stuff that they can ignore, right? You know, if you can come up with something that's going to elicit a response and open that conversation back up, the better, right? So that's what you're going to do. And then we can send these out and get them going. The steps, you can set a task. So if you want a step where somebody on your team manually calls them, set a task, and then that'll fire off to them, and I'll show you where all the tasks live. And then they'll know that they have to call this person. Automate an email, automate a text, and then this is my favorite, automated sending a webhook. This is where if you got Zapier, anything in Zapier, you can typically have this fire off to that Zap and then do whatever you need to do. So customers are using this for things like Print Genie for one-off mail pieces, like Sly Broadcast for RVM. I think you can even hook it up to things like Bonjoro to have like a video email go out, which is cool. That's trust building, right? Like if you could have yourself acquisitions person record a video saying, hey, you know, just want to introduce myself. I'll be meeting you at the appointment. I mean, it's freaking huge. Like you can do that with the status automation too, which makes more sense than putting it in a follow-up sequence. But if you want to do a follow-up thing video in an email, you can do that as well by doing this and hooking it up through Zapier to Bonjoro. There's just countless options and opportunities of stuff to be a part of the follow-up sequence to be able to, you know, build credibility and reach people in different ways over time, right? If you just do text messages every day for 2 weeks, that's not good, right? Like just have a little bit of tact and change things up a little bit. So yeah, so super powerful, really awesome to be able to do all that. And I'm going to show you really quick what this looks like when you put a lead in there, right? So if we're back over here, let's say we were negotiating with this one, and all I got to do is put it in follow-up sequence, and I choose the template, and then who the message is and the phone number the text will come from, all that kind of stuff, and I click create. And whenever you choose the template, usually it'll go ahead and choose your default settings so that you don't have to figure these other things out. So I do hot sequence. It's already going to populate this stuff with the defaults. I can change them if I want, and then click create. So a couple clicks, and then it's in follow-up. So what that does is it goes into the follow-up stage. Over here, we had contact not made, active, follow-up. We have manual follow-ups, where if you're just like wanting a list that people come in and make contact, and then automated. So these are the ones that are automated. And if I look at this property on El Paso Street, which is in automated follow-up right now, I can see messages that went out, but I can also go in here and see the sequence itself and the steps that, this one was already sent today at 9:09 a.m. There's another one scheduled for tomorrow. And I've got all the history all right here. So it's very cool. You can see all the stuff that's going on. I can pause that sequence. I can cancel the whole thing. I can do whatever I need to do. But it just takes care of it for you, right? And the really cool thing about these is you can chain them together. If I go back to my follow-up settings, so let's look at the offer made hot. This goes 30 days. If I didn't get a response for them or something's not happening at that point, I can assume that they're not as hot as I thought they were, right? I probably will put a task on the end of this for somebody on my team to check and see if they did sell to somebody else, if that's possible in some way. But then also over here on the left, I can set when the sequence completes, what do we do with it? This is another way that Forefront keeps your leads from slipping through the cracks. If it runs through the automated follow-up, it's not just sitting in limbo somewhere. You tell it where you want it to go. And I can just say start new sequence. So as soon as it's done with this hot sequence, I can move them to the warm sequence, right? You guys see the power of this? And then from the warm sequence, I could have that one when it finishes, go to the cold sequence. And then in that way, I'm chaining these all together. And so I got 30 days plus I got a warm sequence that's 220 days. So now we're at 250 days. And then I got a cold sequence that's 400 days. So I'm already losing track. 250 plus 4, that's 650 days of follow-up that's going to happen automatically without me doing anything. Obviously, I'll probably have tasks in there to call and stuff. So there's some things to do, but the system will tell me when that is. I don't have to worry about all of it. It's all being managed. That's the key. Forefront is all about the active leads that you're working and deals that you're working right now at the forefront. Follow-up goes in the background because over time, doing this properly, you're going to have 300, 400, 500 leads in follow-up. You can't possibly want to come in here and see all of those jumbled up with the active ones that you're working. That's what stinks about other CRM systems that show you everything in lists, right? There's no prioritization of what's where in your business. And, that's how stuff slips and that's how stuff misses. And you don't get that 37% of extra sellers that are likely to eventually sell to you. All right. The last thing I want to show you was I do have in the inbox this one on East Nottingham Drive. Now, these are automated messages that went out. Let me go ahead and refresh this real quick. These were automated messages that went out. And then she actually responded because it's a response, right? So you can really close by next Friday. So I can look at my note. She mentions needing the cash to invest in her company, but then pretends like she won't budget all on asking price. We're pretty far apart, but I think with enough nurturing, she will come around quickly. Focus on quick cash. So I have some context. Right now, she's saying, can you really close by next Friday? Meaning she's moving into decision because she's enticed by having this resolved. This record, though, was an automated follow-up, right? But when she sent this text message back to me, it paused it today, right? This message came in at 4:12 at 9:25 a.m., so it got paused. It was only on step 1 of 8. So if I go into that lead and I click on this, you can see it's paused. I can resume it. I can cancel it altogether. And then I can see what she's already received there, which is also showing here. So how cool is that? Like the system is automatically going to handle pausing and keeping up with all this for you. Because I'm telling you, at the end of the day, the last thing that you want to do as an investor is have a system that you're spending all your time being the admin of this system rather than doing deals and working on your business, right? That's the last thing that you want to do. And so many people that happens to. And Forefront, we're building that to not be an issue ever again for real estate investors. And our customers, I'm sure, can attest to it. Anybody that's on this call, we're highly focused on that. And it's a really big deal to us. And hopefully it'll be a big deal to you guys as you make that shift in strategy and mindset to working with sellers at where they are in their journey. Okay. All right. So let's get back to this. Zach Mitchell says that Forefront sending hundreds of texts and emails on a weekly basis without lifting a finger, needing to constantly revive interactions with leads that would have been forgotten about in other systems. So he's a big fan of the automation. And I just want to ask you really quick, which does your business need most work in right now? Is it the organization where all your leads are coming into a place and then you know about them so that you can make those calls right away and answer those calls live? Is that the first step that you need, being that that's the pyramid? Is the connection part, the part of having everything together in one place and having that trust building automations built in? Is that something that your company needs? Or is it the follow-up? Is it the ensuring that you keep top of mind for sellers? Where are you guys at? Let me know over in the chat if you guys are feeling like it's organization or connection determination. Which one is the thing that your business needs most? Yeah, Frank says that he